Hare Krishna. So this being the disappearance day of Sri Lochan Das Thakur, one of our main acharyas, we'll sing the song that you hopefully have your sheets. You don't need a sheet? He knows it by heart. Oh, not on the ground, Mataji. Don't put any sacred, yeah. Jaya Nilo Premadhana Koruna Prachur He no Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Kaha Mora Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kaha Dasa Raghunata Patita Pavan Kaha Mora Bhatta Juga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kali Kota Gela Goranataraj Pashane Kuti Mata Annale Pashibo Gauranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gele Pabo Se Samba Sangira Sange Je Koilo Bilas Se Sangana Paya Kande Narotamada Anjayanilo Premadana Karuna Prachur He no Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur. Okay. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy Where has such a personality as Srinivasa Acharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So now we're going to hear a little bit about the glories of Lochan Das Thakur. Okay. All right. Sri Lochan Das Thakur was a disciple of Sri Narahari Sarakar Thakur, a dearest associate of Lord Chaitanya. And this is a quote from the Chaitanya Mangal book that Lochan Das wrote. My hope of hopes is to be near the lotus feet of Sri Narottam Das Thakur and serve him with my very life. The cherished desire of the fallen Lochan Das is to be allowed by Narahari's grace to sing the glories of Lord Gauranga. My Lord is Sri Narahari Thakur. I am his servant. Bowing before him, I beg for his service. This is my only aspiration. Close quote. Lochan Das Thakur wrote Chaitanya Mangal, which tells many pastimes of Lord Chaitanya not revealed by Vrindavan Das Thakur in his Chaitanya Bhagavatam or Krishnadas Kaviraj in his Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lochan Das mentions an especially touching conversation Lord Chaitanya had with Viṣṇu Priya Devi the night before he took sannyas. The Viṣṇu Priya Devi was Lord Chaitanya's second wife. His first wife died, and she was very young, like 18 or something when he left. Lord Chaitanya was 24. Being a talented musician, Lochan Das told Mahaprabhu's pastimes in beautiful poetry filled with fire and rhythm. Common people could easily understand the divine character of Lord Chaitanya and awaken their religious feelings. As devotees regularly chant the Vedic epics Ramayana and Mahabharata, Gaudiya Vaishnavas still wander through Bengal reciting the Chaitanya Mangal. Now write to me if you want, it's been translated, and I think I can provide you with a PDF of that if you want. Dravida Das, no, Dravida 108 at Gmail, sorry. Lochan Das also wrote many songs praising Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, and Gauridas Pandit. Lochan Das stresses that Raganuga Bhaktas must take shelter of Gadadhar, Vrindavan, Ishwari to attain Radha Govinda Prema Bhakti. So he's adding all these. This is my old friend Mahanidhi Maharaj. So Raganuga Bhaktas, those who follow the path of spontaneous devotional service, were meant to come to that platform through sadhana. And Gadadhar Vrindavan Ishwari, Gadadhar takes the role of Radharani, and she's I think she's an expansion. And she has this, he has this very intimate relationship with Lord Chaitanya as a servant. Radha Govinda Prema Bhakti. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to print and distribute Lochan Das Thakur's Sri Chaitanya Mangal. Srila Prabhupada was very fond of his bhajans. While singing Parama Karuna, Srila Prabhupada would plunge into the ocean of Gauranga Prema. I put that into an English song, in English. You know Parama Karuna? The perfect equivalent of that is super compassionate. It has the same exact beat. Super compassionate are these two golden lords, Nitai Gaurachandra. They are the best of lords, crystals of avatars, founts of pure bliss and deep wonder. It's a little high, but that's just the first verse. If you're interested in that, write me, I'll send you my poetry. Prabhupada wrote an extensive commentary on this bhajan, which is available, I think, in the songbook. Bhajo Bhajo Bhai, Chaitanya Nitai, Suddhana Vishwas Kori. Lochan Das asked everyone, my dear brother, just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm faith and conviction. Don't think that this chanting and dancing will not lead to the desired goal. It will. It is the assurance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one will get all perfection by this process. Therefore, one must chant with firm faith and conviction. I think this is probably from Prabhupada's commentary. Lochan Das Samadhi is in the 64 Samadhis area. Now that 64 Samadhis, is that in Radha? Yeah. Okay. Okay. We'll have to settle this. Settle it outside, okay? All right. We are reading Srimad Bhagavatam. All right. Narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayaresha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in the best of songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On his 20th day of January 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, Chapter 1, The Manus, Administrators of the Universe, text number 14. Atagre Vishayak Karmani Ihante Karmahetave Ihamano Hipurushaha Prayo Aniham Prapadyate Atagre Vishayak Karman Ihante Karmahetave Ihamano Hipurusha Prayoni Ham Prapadyate Atagre Vishayak Karman Ihante Karmahetave Ihamano Hipurusha Prayoni Ham Prapadyate Atagre Vishayak Karman Ihante Karmahetave Ihamano Hipurusha Prayoni Ham Prapadyate Atagre Vishayak Karman Ihante Karmahetave Ihamano Hipurusha Prayoni Ham Prapadyate. Go ahead. Atagre Vishayak Karman Ihante Karmahetave Ihamano Hipurusha Prayoni Ham Prapadyate. Atagre Vishayak Karman ihante karma hetave, ihamano hi purusha, prayo niham papadyate, atagre vishaya karman, ihante karma hetave, ihamano hi purushah, prayo niham papadyate. Ladies. Atagre vishaya karman, ihante karma hetave, ihamano hi purusha, prayo niham papadyate. Atagre vishaya karman, Niham papadyate. Anyone online?
Atagre rishaya karman,
Atagre vishaya karman,
ihante karma hetave,
ihante karma hetave,
ihamano hi purusha,
ihamano hi purusha,
prayo niham prapadyate.
prayo niham papadyate. Ata. Therefore, agre, in the beginning, rishayaha, all learned rishis, saintly persons, karmani, fruit of activities, ihante, execute, akarma, freedom from fruit of results, hetave, for the purpose of, ihamanaha, engaging in such activities. He, indeed, purushaha, a person, prayaha, almost always, aniham, liberation from karma, prapadyate, attains. Translation. Now this is still Swayambhuva speaking, isn't it? Therefore, to enable people to reach the stage of activities that are not tinged by fruit of results, great saints first engage people in fruit of activities. For unless one begins by performing activities as recommended in the Shastras, one cannot reach the stage of liberation or activities that produce no results. Time out for a second. Whoever fills these cups, do not fill them too close to the top, because otherwise it ends up on your... Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 3.9, Lord Krishna advises, Yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. Now this translation has been adjusted a bit. Work has to be done as a sacrifice for Viṣṇu. Work has to be performed as a sacrifice for Viṣṇu. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Generally, everyone is attracted to hard labor for becoming happy in this material world. But although various activities are going on all over the world simply for the sake of happiness, unfortunately, only problems are being created from such fruitive activities. Therefore, it is advised that active persons engage in activities of Krishna consciousness, which are called yajna, because then they will gradually come to the platform of devotional service. Yajna means Lord Viṣṇu, the Yajna Purush, the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Bhoktaram Yajna-tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the enjoyer, and therefore if we begin our activities for His satisfaction, we will gradually lose our taste for material activities. Sutta Goswami declared to the great assembly of sages at Naimisharanya, Hatak pumbir dvidashreshta varnashrama vavagasaha svanustitasya dharmasya sangsiddhir haritoshanam. or best among the twice-born, it is concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging his prescribed duties, or dharma, according to caste, divisions, and order of life, is to please the Lord Hari. Bhagavatam 1.2.13. According to Vedic principles, everyone must act according to his classification as Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyasi. Everyone should progress toward perfection by acting in such a way that Krishna will be pleased. Sang Siddhir Haritoshanam. One cannot please Krishna by sitting idly. One must act according to the directions of the spiritual master for the sake of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then one will gradually come to the stage of pure devotional service. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.12, Naishkamyamapyachyuta bhava varjitam nashobhate jnanamalang niranjanam. Knowledge of self-realization, even though freed from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of the conception of the infallible God. Jnanis recommend that one adopt naishkarmya by not doing anything but simply meditating and thinking of Brahman. But this is impossible unless one realizes Parabrahman, Krishna. If there is no Krishna consciousness, any kind of activity, be it philanthropic, political, or social, simply causes karma bandhana, bondage to material work. As long as one is entangled in karma bandhana, one must accept different types of bodies that spoil the human form of facility. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 6.3, karma yoga is recommended. Aruruksho munir yogam karma karanamuchyate. Yogharudasita seva shamak karanamuchyate. For one who is a neophyte in the yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who has already attained to yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. Close quote. Nonetheless, karmendriyani sangyamya yaaste manasasmaran indriyartan vamudhatma mityacharasa uchyate. One who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Bhagavad Gita 3.6. One should act for Krishna very seriously in order to become fully Krishna conscious, and should not sit down to imitate such great personalities as Haridas Thakur. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur condemns such imitation. He said, Tushtamana tumi kisher Vaishnav Patishtara tari nijanera ghari tava hari nama kevala kaitava. My dear mind, what kind of devotee are you? Simply for cheap adoration, you sit in a solitary place and pretend to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but this is all cheating. Close quote. Recently, in Mayapur, an African devotee wanted to imitate Haridas Thakur, who chanted 300,000 names a day, which is 192 rounds, practically chanting, that probably was like at least 16 hours a day. He wanted to imitate Haridas Thakur, but after 15 days, he became restless and went away. Do not suddenly try to imitate Haridas Thakur. Engage yourself in Krishna conscious activities, and gradually you will come to the stage of liberation. Muktir hitvanita rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. Om jnanatimirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this is a central principle of the Bhakti Yoga as taught by Lord Chaitanya and his sincere followers and systemized by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Nectar of Devotion. And that is that while the final goal is ultimately to, whether one is sitting down or whether one is working or doing whatever, being situated in one's original relationship with Krishna and internally serving him in any circumstance in that intimate relationship, whether it's as a gopi or as a cowherd boy or as a parent or as a cow. It could be aspire to become a cow if that's your original swarup. And this last phrase here is very interesting because mukti, or liberation from birth and death, is a central principle in all forms of yoga, all forms of spiritual elevation as taught by in India, in the Eastern wisdom, books of wisdom. And what is this mukti? Mukti means liberation, right? So liberation is not in itself some activity. It's a state of being. You're free. So just the idea, which is what the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, they exalt, is that the whole purpose of yoga, of our discipline, is to negate all of these varieties. This is called vishesha, right? Like each of us is an individual. We're all human beings, but we have our separate minds and senses and desires and all these different things. And the whole material world is full of all these varieties, and they're all due to in the living beings to different states of reactions to karmic activities. And now they're coming up through different species, plant and animal and fish, and finally coming to the human form. But it's all just a lot of suffering. It's an attempt to enjoy a little bit, but that keeps you bound to this world. And eventually, in human form of life, you perform some gross sinful activity and you lose the human form of life. So this is this wheel of time and birth, old age, disease, and death, threefold miseries that we want to get free from, mukti. Now in this 10th chapter of the second canto, which is not listed in if you have a book, but that's what it is. It's in the second canto, and there's kind of a table of contents there. The different topics of the Bhagavatam are listed. And one of them is this mukti. But mukti is not defined here as just liberation from birth and death. Hitva anyata rupam means giving up all of the forms, these forms that we have, which are not us, right? It's always changing, but we ourselves are spirit, unchanging spirit soul. That's the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita. So, but not only are we pure spirit, but we have a spiritual form, spiritual activities, spiritual identity, which we've forgotten since time immemorial, since we turned away from Krishna and got caught up in the dualities of this material world and trying to enjoy and then trying to negate all the suffering, and this is what we've been doing. So that original swarup, swarupain of it was to be, mukti is defined not in negative terms, being free from this, free from that, but to give up all the other forms and to be situated in your swarup. Now that swarup is, we read Krishna book in Goloka Vrindavan, right? And there are so many rupas. There are so many different forms of living entities there. I mentioned the gopis, but all the living, it's important to remember that in the spiritual world, all of the beings there, the living beings, even everything is living, is conscious, even the ground and the rivers, is in its perfect relationship with Krishna, a loving relationship, a rasa. This is why it's called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean of the nectarian rasas of loving exchange with Krishna. So mukti is not defined here as some negative thing, but it means giving up. Yeah, the negative, giving up all these other rupas, these other forms that we've had since time immemorial, and to be situated once again in our swarup in relation to Krishna. Now that doesn't happen. To get from here to there, to get from our conditioned state into being fully conscious of that swarup at every moment, doesn't happen as just a form of meditation. It's not just a mental exercise. It involves purifying your senses, all of your senses, which include the eyes, the ears, and nose, everything. And of course the consciousness. And that's done through the systematic adoption of the activities of bhakti yoga. You walk into an ISKCON temple, as I did back in '73, and you keep visiting there, and after a while I'll ask you to do something, probably wash the pots or something, you know. I remember when I finally moved in, you know, I wasn't initiated, I was just a bhakta. And so it's time to take out the trash, Bhakta Tom, you know. So I was happy to be there, you know, chanting, because I'd been chanting before. So I'm taking out the trash and chanting Hare Krishna. And there were a bunch of bags of trash. And the temple commander, who was, he was also a bhakta actually, hadn't been initiated yet. But he said, I think, Bhakta Tom, I think you're going to make it. You know, because even I was doing this menial service, I was so happy to be in a place where the more you chanted Hare Krishna, the more they liked you. Because I would go to these other yoga studios, and after a while, okay, you have to stop chanting now. You know, now we're going to do the exercises and all this. Okay, fine. So that's the thrust here. And Prabhupada goes through, now it's interesting that in the translation it says, I think that was in the previous verse. No, this verse. Therefore, to enable people to reach the stage of activities that are not tinged by fruitive results, great saints first engage people in fruitive activities. Now, I'm not sure what that, I mean, the fruitive is the motive part of it. That's the motive. Fruitive means that you have, your motive for doing something is to enjoy the fruit, right? But I think what Prabhupada is getting here, this word karma, right? Karmani, activities. It's activities that look fruitive. You know, activities that you might go to some other restaurant or something, and you see people they're cooking there, and they're, you know, doing this, and they're taking out the trash. You know, but you go to a Govinda's restaurant, and they're cooking and doing anything, but it's not fruitive activity because it's all for the purpose of glorifying the Lord. You're conscious of this will be offered, so my consciousness is so important, and all the cleanliness is so important. And when it's offered, and then you give it to the customers, yeah, they're paying for it, but they're getting prasadam, and so it has, and we know that has a very salutary effect on bringing people along to Krishna consciousness. It's a very important aspect. So this is what Prabhupada he relates here, is that sometimes we want to, you know, we read about, you know, Haridas Thakur. And I remember I used to go to these retreats, these japa retreats in the early aughts. Then the 2008 recession hit, and nobody had enough money to pay for the little room that they're going to get. You know, it was the whole thing. So they stopped at that point. They may be picking up somewhere now. But there was usually one day that was reserved for 64 rounds. You know, and it was a challenge. You know. But what was so great about these retreats is that you imagine spending all day, every day, you know, hearing about the holy name, practicing the holy name. We'd pair off and we'd share. You know, I tried to do this, but my mind didn't let me. And it was really enlivening, you know, to be thinking about chanting Hare Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna all the time. But during the 64 rounds, I found it, you know, it wasn't difficult to complete it, but it was difficult to stay as attentive as you want to for that, you know, hour after hour. It takes about 5 hours if you're chanting at a pretty good clip. But that was the standard. That was the standard that Prabhupada started. You know, the history is very fascinating in the Lilamrita. That Prabhupada said, well, you know, because he was part of the Gaudiya Math, he said, okay, everyone had gone, you know, where are you going to find beads? You know, on the Lower East Side in 1966. They went to the 5 and Dime. We used to call them 5 and Dime. Now they're the dollar stores. And, you know, they're discount. But they had some kind of beads. They were big beads like this. I don't know what they were, you know, people would use them for, but you could pick up a bunch of beads. And they bought a whole bunch of beads, and they strung their beads. And so Prabhupada said, okay, for initiation, it's 64 rounds. So, I think this was before the initiation, so you had to get qualified. So they went and they came back to Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, if you want us to do anything else during the day, you're going to have to, you know, we can't do 64 rounds. So he said, okay, 32. Prabhupada, we can't do 32. 16, absolute minimum, and that's what it came. But you know, 16 is you know, a minimum, and it's not really that hard a sadhana. But the point is that it's part of a whole day of activities that you're meant to do with Krishna in mind, that you're doing this for Krishna. I'm cleaning Krishna's floor here. I'm, you know, cooking Krishna's lunch. I'm going out and distributing Krishna's books, and for the pleasure of the spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. And as we know, one of the main things that the spiritual master does, he gives you activities to do that he assures you these are bona fide activities that will please Krishna if you do them nicely. So in other words, you're pleasing the spiritual master, you're pleasing Krishna. So, but it's all based on activity. It's not just this sitting. We find in the 6th chapter, when we went through the 6th chapter in our evening class, and now we're in the 18th chapter, we're going around pretty quick. We'll get back there soon. And Krishna is giving a pretty nice summary of the Ashtanga Yoga system, which is where you don't do that much. You know, you sit and you breathe and you meditate. You know, so there's not much active thing going on. And there are some yogis, I mean, it's spoken of in the Bhagavatam. In earlier ages, it used to be people can meditate like that, you know, for hours, days, or years. I mean, 60,000 years Valmiki meditated. So anyway, it's inconceivable. But that idea of just, you know, quieting everything down and just working with your mind, that's what Ashtanga Yoga is. But Arjun rejected it, and he said, I can't do it. Chanchalam himana Kṛṣṇa pramati balavadrunham tasyaham nugaham manye vayu ivasaduskadam. The mind is very restless. Chanchalam means it goes from one thing to another. Nobody has to be convinced about that, right? The mind will go here, there, and there. And very obstinate and powerful. Pramati balavadrunham. I think trying to control is like trying to control a wind. Right? Like one of these winds that was blowing up, Santa Ana winds. You know, like hurricane winds. You can't control it. It's so powerful. You can't control it that way. So there needs to be engagement for the mind, engagement for the senses, that nevertheless link you to Krishna. You see? And that's why we have all the mantra itself, the Hare Krishna mantra, it all starts there. So chanting is one thing, but the other side of that is hearing. No, the more you're hearing carefully, paying attention, we just read that this morning in the Raja Vidya reading, that's where you really get the effect. We know that one of the 10 offenses, although it's listed as number 11, is to be inattentive while chanting. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that's the root of all the other offenses. If we're really, really attentive, then we're going to start tasting the nectar of Krishna consciousness, of the holy name, and we won't want to stop. Why stop? If you have this source of nectar, it doesn't cost anything, and it's free. So, but to get to that point, there has to be that quieting of the mind and focus, tremendous focus on the sound of the holy name, and to really experience Krishna's presence there. But this was Lord Chaitanya's great gift. The Shastras recommend which names we should chant as Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's not that we have to search for some name or manufacture one. Follow the saintly persons in the Shastras in chanting his holy name. And this was Prabhupada's great genius, He had great faith in the holy name. Coming to this alien environment, and it was, the Lower East Side of Manhattan finally coming to. And it's not the place you would ordinarily think to find someone who would be willing to chant Hare Krishna. But Prabhupada had full faith in the orders of his spiritual master. It was his duty to try. And he did, gloriously, with tremendous courage. And Krishna blessed him with success. And, there was that interlude. I mean, everything was expanding. He went to the West Coast in the early '67, and they had the mantra rock dance, and all the bands who were famous then, they were participating, and they were all chanting, and Prabhupada was jumping up and down. And it was a tremendous success, and the temple was founded there nicely there. They even had the deities, Jagannath deities, Then he comes back to America, and he continues. Then, boom, he had this stroke in May. It was just at the end of May when we usually have the Memorial Day. And because of that, they couldn't find a doctor. Everyone was out of town. So it just seemed like, and it looked really bad. And so everyone was chanting. That everyone on the West Coast, everyone in New York, they were all chanting constantly for Prabhupada's recovery. And finally, he did recover a little bit, and he thought he would try to recuperate in California. He went to the new temple, but it was too busy there, so they took him to a spot up. I forget the name of it. Stinson Beach. It was a little house that they rented. Prabhupada couldn't leave there because the road going up there was very winding, and it made Prabhupada dizzy and not feel well. So he couldn't come down for the Ratha Yatra. They had the first Ratha Yatra where Prabhupada was in Stinson Beach. But it wasn't that warm. If you go to San Francisco, sometimes it gets pretty chilly there, and there's not so much sun. And so finally he said, I got to go back to Vrindavan. I got to go back to India. And all the devotees said, oh, he's just going back there. He's never going to come back here. He'll just pass away over there, So they writing letters to him. He actually started to get some good Ayurvedic treatment there and get some recovery. And all the devotees, maybe if there were 100, I'd be surprised. They were all writing his letters, please come back, we need you, like that. So finally, at the end of the year, I think it was in December, he came back, and it was just like, you can imagine the relief, a lot of tears and everything. And Krishna gave him the blessing to, another 10 years to grow the movement. So what's being expressed here is that those who are wise, those who are, what does it say? The entire, this is the previous verse, I think. Yeah, this was the previous verse. But what is it? To enable people to reach the stage of activities that are not tinged by fruitive results, great saints first engage people in fruitive activities. Fruitive activities means activities that are normally performed for fruitive reasons. But you're actually doing them with the understanding, this is for Krishna ultimately. I always like to chant this verse, and it seems to be so appropriate. Yehi sangsparjita bhoga dukkha yonai evate adyantabantan konte anate shuramite buddha. That intelligent persons don't take part in activities whose sole motive is to enjoy the senses, you see? Because they know, O son of Kunti, they know that those activities are the sources of all misery, and they have a beginning and an end. And so the wise do not delight in them. That's the translation. So, but we still have to engage in activities. It's kind of, we're used to that. So there has to be activities for the eyes, for the ears especially, for the tongue, all the senses. There's a spiritual activity. And by purifying the senses, then we come to the point of being able to relish the more and more the Krishna consciousness. Atak pumbir dvijash, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi Nabave Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukhe hi Jivado Swayam Eva Spurachida. Is that with the senses that we now have, which are contaminated through lifetimes of material activity, and the mind, of course, is central, we cannot perceive the real character of the holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. But when we take up the service of the Lord, beginning with the tongue, chanting the holy name and tasting prasadam, like that, beginning with the tongue, but then all the other senses become again. Sevon mukhe jivado means beginning with the tongue. Swayam eva spuracheda. Gradually, the spiritual nature of Krishna and his name and all of that becomes more and more apparent, and we are able to perceive things spiritually. And this is how we develop that swarup, that understanding of swarup. Our actual form, which is composed of the same senses, similar senses, but they're all pure. And we can see, even things that don't seem to have a relation with Krishna, we can say, there's a relation. Everything has a relation to Krishna. You see? That's why it's said that the pure devotees, they see a tree, but they don't really see a tree, they see Krishna. Why? Because they see, because the soul in this tree is part and parcel of Krishna. And this form, it got this form because the soul performed some egregious sin in the previous life. And so everything reminds them of Krishna. And they have this loving relation with Krishna. So you can go through life, at every moment experiencing Krishna's presence and chances to serve him in so many different ways. And that's why the great devotees, they're always satisfied with very, very little. You don't need much just to keep body and soul together. And even if you are in a very opulent situation, it doesn't bewilder you. You don't get attracted to try to exploit it. But rather, you see, how can I engage all this in Krishna's service? The sannyasi, the Goswamis are wandering in Vrindavan. They're completely blissful, living as austerely as you can imagine. They have just a few loincloths that they pick up on the road, and then sew them together, or simple clothes. They have no house. They don't even have their own tree to live under. They live under a different tree every night. They beg their food and go marukari. It means add a bee from here to there, here to there. So how can you live like that? Gopi bhavada sarmatabdhari kalola magnomuhur. that at every moment they're tasting the deep ecstasy of the gopis' love for Krishna. Gopi Bhavata Samadali, you know. So they gave the examples of that. And it was interesting because 3 of them gave up millions, what would today be millions and millions of dollars. Rupan Sanatan with the right and left hand, the finance minister and the prime minister of the king. Raghunath Das was the sole heir to a huge kingdom. The Zamindars, his uncle, whose name was Hiranyamadumjimdo. I don't know if it was a nickname or not, but it means gold. You know, Hiranya's gold, and his father. But he was completely indifferent to it. They even married him to a very, you know, beautiful, chaste wife, you know. His mind was with Lord Chaitanya. He ran away, escaped. They had guards, you know, and he escaped. He went for 10 or 12 days, hardly eating, through the forest, and finally he came to Jagannath Puri. And he became the emblem of the greatest austerity, renunciation. You know, even in the matter of eating, you know. First, his father, well, okay, he's not going to come back, so we'll send money every month, you know. So he sent money, and he'd hold a big feast for all the sannyasis in Puri, you know. So after this time that stopped, and Lord Chaitanya asked through Damodar, he said, what happened? I didn't get the invitation. Well, he stopped accepting that money because he was thinking, I'm the sannyasi and I'm expecting all this money from my father, forget it. So then Lord Chaitanya, well, how is he eating? He says, oh, he stands on the steps of the Jagannath temple. And then he just asked the Brahmins, because they all have some, you know, there's so much food there, so they would give him something. So Lord Chaitanya, oh, very good, very good, very good. Then after a while, he stopped seeing him there. So, where's Raghunath? I haven't seen him, you know. He's not standing on the stairs. Yeah, he's feeling like a prostitute, you know. He was thinking, so he gave me a lot yesterday. Let me go over there, you know. He didn't ask me, so forgive me. So no, it's not good. So then how's he eating? Well, he goes, you know, there's rice they cook so much that no one, you know, eventually they have to throw it away. So they throw it into the field, and some of the cows will come. But after a certain point, it gets rotten. The cows won't even eat it. So he's going after that rice. He gets it, you know, collects it, washes it clean, and then that's his food. That's what he has. So Lord Chaitanya went to see him. He said, Raghunath, I understand you're eating all this wonderful Mahaprasadam, and you're not inviting me? And Raghunath said, no, it's not fit for you. No. You know, and Lord Chaitanya would say, oh, you know, to encourage him, it says. But so how was he living? You know, okay, that's how he was eating, but what was he experiencing? Oh, he was just experiencing prema bhakti at every moment. So there's a path. This is a bhakti marga. And anyone who, you know, comes to the temple, you know, there's always things to do. There's always, you know, we're engaged in things to do. And it's very purifying because you're doing it for Krishna, and you're doing it for the Guru, and you're doing it for the preaching mission, and it's, you know, it's enlivening. But there's meant to be an internal development as well. So that, and we see if you actually get caught up in it and you're really doing it, then your desire for material activities will wane. You see, you know, you say, oh my God, I can't believe I used to do that. You know, I would never do that again. It's not like you're clenching your teeth. Oh boy, I can't do that anymore. No, it's like, are you kidding? And the ideal, you know, we have Yamunacharya, his famous verses. I think they're quoted twice in the Bhagavad Gita. Yadabadi mama cheta Krishna padada vinde namanamana sama namanamana how's it go? Udyatam rantamasi tadabadi badanadi sangame smayamane bhavati bhakavikados stinishti vanangsha. Sorry, my mind is going. So he says, ever since I've been tasting ever new rasa and pleasure by serving the lotus feet of Nandanandana. Namanamana rasadaman udyatam rantamasi. Since then, now sometimes, because he had been a king, there's the whole story how he was a brahmachari, but then he defeated the king's pundit, and the king gave him half the kingdom. So here he's like a 15-year-old boy with the kingdom, and he grew up in the kingdom, and he got into some of the enjoyments of the kingdom, which you know what a king can have. So he said, ever since I've been, enjoying it every second, serving Nandanandana's lotus feet. Sometimes the remembrance of my, enjoyments in as a king with the opposite sex. So when that comes up, I twist my mouth and I spit at the thought. Prabhupada charmingly says, I spite at it. That's the way. So that's a very advanced platform. But you can imagine, just see how all right, we're pleasure-seeking beings, right? Because we're part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And we want to enjoy. But because we are not, we've turned away from Krishna. Isha means turning away from Krishna, vimukha. Then where do we get the enjoyment? When you go to the material world. You see, we become absorbed in mind now. We've forgotten Krishna. You see, that's how we came to the spiritual, to the material world. So it has to be a turning back. We have to get accustomed again to our natural life. Jivera Swarupoi Krishna Nitya Das. Lord Chaitanya is his first teaching to Sanatana Goswami, who wanted to know, who am I? Why am I suffering? Well, here's who you are. And this is the central verse for Krishna consciousness. Jivera, of the Jiva, Swarup, the Swarup, that's in the end of the purport here. Krishna Nitya Das is an eternal servant of Krishna. But there's more. Jivera tatastha shakti beda bed prakash. But because we are tatastha, we're constitutionally servants of Krishna, but we're energy, and we have the capacity and the tendency to turn away from Krishna and to be overwhelmed by Maya. That's what it means to be marginal energy. Margin, like the beach. You go down to the beach and you see it coming and going, right? It comes in. So that part that's sometimes covered and sometimes not of the beach, that's what we are. So now we're covered. So, Jiva Tatasta Beda Bed Prakash. So we are in that marginal position and simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. So because we're one with Krishna, therefore we need to uncover that nature of ours, that purely spiritual nature. And it comes from the practice of devotional service, which includes all of the senses and the mind. The mind is always the key. The senses help the mind to fix on Krishna. You're looking at the deities, you're chanting the holy name, reciting some verses, and the mind is then absorbed in Krishna because it's getting the help from the ears and the hearing and all the senses. You're in the kitchen, you're cooking, you're preparing something for, what am I making all these samosas for? Oh yeah, so Krishna is going to enjoy. And then the devotees will taste. So you're serving the devotees and you're serving Krishna. So that service attitude, that's what is essential to develop. And eventually that becomes your whole life and soul. He says, and you see the great devotees at every moment they're serving Krishna. Prabhupada says 24 hours a day. Glorifying either directly or engaging others in glorifying, multiplying. That's even more pleasing to Krishna. If you ever get money print books, why? Because that enabled unlimited people to learn about Krishna. And Prabhupada was so successful, he's very eager to have them all translated from English into all these other languages. See? So it's that's what he's talking about here. That's why Mano. They engage them in fruitive activities, engage them in activities that look like fruitive activities, but because they're ultimately for Krishna, they're very purifying the senses and mind like that. All right, as usual, I went over time. Any questions or comments? Bhakti Matthias.
I have a question. You talk about liberation. So my question was let's say a scenario where someone has achieved liberation, let's say in the Vaikuntha planets, so he's serving Krishna there. But then in that position, is there any wanting for that soul to become more intimate to Krishna, and then he can start such thing as upbridging to the, Goloka, Vrindavan?
Can you graduate from Vaikuntha to Goloka?
Yes.
That's a long-standing question. Usually what we understand is, although that's, I think Prabhupada said is possible, but rare, the idea is that as you practice, those who are in Vaikuntha, they're also satisfied with that. They're satisfied with that. And it's not like the Golokites come down, and say, hey, there's something more than this. Check it out. As far as I know. And so that's their natural mood, the awe and reverence. They're happy with that. And so what we do have, however, is on this plane, is that to be exposed to both of them. You know, Krishna consciousness is like following in Lord Chaitanya's mood, and there really is there's plenty of room for dasya ras, but that's kind of thought of as kind of the basis of all the other rasas, because they're all included. If you go to sakya ras, it doesn't mean that they're not anymore servants. They're better servants. What's the criterion? Those who are pleasing the boss, those who are pleasing the master most. So Krishna is more pleased with this intimate service of his friends. You know, when they tease him, or, you know, there's that famous painting, you know, and from the Nectar of Devotion, you know, where they're playing a trick on him. Close your mouth, Krishna. I'm going to give you a very nice sweetmeat, and they give him a flower, and you, what is that? You know, so they played a trick on Krishna. So he prefers that to, you are the greatest, the source of all, everything, you know. I mean, that's there, but it's in the 4th chapter. Read the 4th chapter, Adi Leela. My mother's, you know, scolding me steals away my mind from the hymns of the Vedas. He much prefers, you know, this binding, you know, where he's allowed to cry, you know, he cries a little bit, you know. That's his highest pleasure for him, because of the intimacy. So it's generally, you know, that's been covered. So when that gets uncovered, then you go to Goloka Vrindavan. You don't certainly think, I wonder what's going on in Vaikuntha, you know, like that. And the Vaikuntha Vasis, we're good. 4 hands, Sarups, you know. So if it does happen, it's very rare, and it's not, you know. So what the idea is that we want to hear about all the rasas. Now, you know, we don't say, oh, no, I want to become a gopi. You know, you don't know what you want. And Prabhupada's famous, first deserve, then desire. You know, this is this is the mantra for busting the Gopi Baba Club, which is they didn't deserve, but they try to desire, you know. So we go along, read Prabhupada's books, you know. I mean, he said, you know, everything is there. Read the Krishna book. You can read the Rasa dance there in the Krishna book in order, you know. And a tremendous introductory chapter where he's describing, you know, it's very clear that it's nothing mundane, you know. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Dvijamani.
Well, you're expert at Bhagavad Gita.
Not really.
There's a verse mentioned 6.3, Arurukshwar Munyar Yogam. And I'm just wondering, this is referring to the eightfold yoga system practice where you have to first engage your body in asana, pranayama, and things like that, and then you meditate on Paramatma? Or is this referring to the practice of regulated bhakti and then spontaneous bhakti, when you have to work and...
No, those verses, yeah. Aruruksha, how's the rest of the verse go? I don't see it in there.
Arurukshar Munyar
Oh, here it
Yogam
is.
Karma Karana Muchita 6.3.
Yeah. Yeah. So for one who is a neophyte in the yoga system, work is said to be the means. So what is that work?
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah. They're not talking about karma yoga here. You know, although it's karma karanam, but activities, but it's Ashtanga yoga. And all I can think of is that it's you know, all the asanas, you know, and learning how to. I mean, it's not so easy to sit, right? You have to learn how to sit, and all these different things, and it's a job. And if you're able to sit finally, you know, then you can do the pranayama and all these other things, you know. I mean, first comes yama niyama, you know, giving up things that you're attracted to and taking on the things. That's the first step, the first 2 steps. So, sustainable material activity is said to be the means. Nonetheless, one who strains the senses, organ, but whose mind dwells in senses. So the problem is that, okay, then we get to the point of the mind, but the mind, without all of the details, without the holy name and the beautiful deities and all the activities in this wonderful temple you can just wander through, and you know, there's all these windows to the spiritual world, and this Krishna consciousness is always full of things for the senses, especially the ears, you know, and the eyes. Then you don't have that. One of my, so it's very possible, as we know from the stories, these great yogis. Who is it? Who is Salburi Muni? I mean, just think of the irony. He's in Vrindavan. He's taking I guess he's taking a permanent bath in Yamuna, you know, but he's not a devotee. He's sitting there doing yoga and he sees some fish copulating and he loses it. And he goes, I mean, how pathetic is that? Let's just be honest. So he was wasting the opportunity. But the devotees who are, you know, go to Vrindavan and take full advantage of the temples and the thing, then you can come to the point of, you don't care what the fish is doing. That's not going to break your meditation. You know what I'm saying? So that's the great value, especially in this age, of Bhakti Yoga, as Lord Chaitanya taught it. Chanting and dancing, that's a full engagement, right? And then when you get tired, what do? Take some prasadam, you know. Those are essential elements of this movement. So that's the idea, is that if you're going to go with this, you know, impersonal yoga or the Ashtanga yoga, then it's a very rough road to go. You know, Radhanath Swami did that before. He was pretty advanced in that, but it wasn't satisfying. But when he came down, this is a pretty amazing story. He came down and it was, I think, the first Bombay Pandal, and it was, you know, the big tent, and he was sitting in the back. And Prabhupada saw him. He said, "Let him come up here on the stage." He'd never met him before, but he could see the purity, the advancement, you know, that he could be. And of course, you know, he was very successful in the Bhakti Yoga.
You did that too, Dravida Prabhu, right?
I'm sorry?
You did that too.
Not really. I was fortunate enough to come in touch with, you know, I wasn't very advanced in yoga, but it was you know, advanced enough to practice pranayama and thinking the Hare Krishna mantra, and eventually I realized I can't do it unless I join the temple. So that was my good fortune. And that it was that temple where they were producing the books, and I could, you know, my little skill at proofreading came out, which I'm still trying to do, but sometimes people don't like it. It's not spelled like that. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Vijay Krishna, we know you're out there.
Yes, I'm here, Dravida Prabhu. How may I serve you?
Do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. May I?
Please.
Yes, thank you very much. You're most kind. Dandavat pranams. Dravida Prabhu, the very end of the translation to the text you chose for today goes as follows, quote, "All activities that produce no reactions," close quote. Based on this quote, my question is, can you give me an example of an activity which does produce a reaction?
Uh-huh. Going to the basketball game.
Oh.
To root for your team.
What would be the reaction to that?
You'd probably be disappointed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I mean, the thing is, we live in a world where we're surrounded by people doing activities that are, you know, producing reactions. The liberation means your activities, especially, you know, they're all in the realm of devotional service. Whatever you do for Krishna. There's a verse like that. Kayena vacha manasan. It's a expansion of Yat Karoshi Yadashnasi Yad Yohosi. You know, it's a Gita verse. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away, do it as an offering to me. So this verse is more specific. Kayena vacha manasan dayava buddhyatmanava nusabhavat kodoti yad yad sakalam padasmai narayanayeti samarpayeta. Whatever you do with the body, with the words, with your mind, with your senses, with your intelligence, whatever else you got, you know, you should, whatever it is you do it with this consciousness and sincerely. Oh, this is an offering to Narayan. You know, I mean, you could see Prabhupada. He picked up the phone. It was a service. He realized he's going to talk about Krishna. He's going to talk, he's going to enliven a devotee, whatever it was. So at every moment he's aware of that. Whatever you're doing is part of the whole dance of service to Krishna, see? It's not that, okay, I'm serving now, then I have to go over there, do something, then I'll do service over there. The very walking over there is also the service. The driving and turning on the signal is also service. So to be in that mood is you've reached a stage where there are no more fruitive activities. Everything you do is in the mood of service, and you can see how enlivening that will be. You're remembering Krishna, and you're serving him at every moment, part of the Sankirtan movement, or maybe personal service, the altar, whatever it may be. Whether you're cleaning, or whether you're cooking, or whether you're breathing, it's service. So that's the idea, that to come to the point, the stage of liberation are activities that produce no reactions from any material reactions. The result is that you deepen your love for Krishna. So, what's not to like? That's how I understand it, Babu.
Yes, and if I may say it, you, again, as to be expected, you understood it very well.
Well, we've come a long way from the breathtaking. Remember during the pandemic?
Yes, I remember. I will never forget it.
Well, thank you. All glory to
You're welcome.
Hari Hari Bol.